Hello, hello, Shagat the Known here. Welcome back to another coding stream. I believe this is number 4. I'm not quite ready with the alarm UI that I was working on. I ended up looking a lot more into the Dioxys crate than I originally intended, and I'm really leaning towards giving it a try. So there's been a big learning curve with that. Um, Hopefully I can have something by Wednesday, but even that might be pushing it. I've made some good progress though. So I'm not going to waste time on that. Instead, we're going to build something different today, and I've already got a little bit of boilerplate here ready to go. We're going to build, I don't have a great name for it, but I'm calling it like a macro command runner. And it's difficult because there's multiple meanings of the word macro, right? So colloquially, we refer to macros like we have maybe a macro key on your keyboard where you can like program it with certain commands, and you hit it and it performs those commands. That's the kind of macro that I'm referring to. So there's also macros in Rust, and this like info here is a macro defined by the macro rules macro. So it can be a little confusing. I'm talking about like a command runner, like you might set up on a macro key on your keyboard or something. I'm going to build something like that. It's going to be command line based, of course, but it's going to do the job. We should be able to do this in about an hour to 2 hours. Depends, talking might slow things down a little bit, but I have built this. I built one of these a couple weeks ago. It took around an hour or so. Um, so I do have it up for reference as well, because there may be some specific things, particularly with the Windows API, that might be a little weird. So hopefully that helps. Right now I've just got some boilerplate. We'll go over this all. But really, it's just a hello world. But I swapped out println for a logger. So yep, that's good, simple, straightforward. Right there, we're using the log and simple logger crates for that. Easy enough. And I've pulled in Serde with serialize and deserialize. We'll be using that for the for some of the types that we're gonna have in the program. And then I have file with write, because I'm actually I probably want to get rid of. That's difficult. Nah, we'll keep that in. But I have that because we're going to be building our config in memory first, writing it to a file, so I don't have to make a config file manually. All right, so that's a lot. That's a lot to kind of get us started, I guess. And I'm going to uncomment this, and we're basically going to have the compiler mad at us. It should go red in a moment. Oh no, it's because I said I32. We want, rather than I32s, we want to have, we'll say like a macro config struct. Now the compiler is going to be mad. So we'll have a little bit of a conversation with the compiler. So it's complaining that it can't find the macro config type. So what I basically want to do is build out one of these in memory, and then we're not actually going to do a vector of them. We're just going to do the macro config. And I was hoping it would let me just auto generate. I mean, it's not hard, but oh well. So we'll go ahead and make it happy by giving it a macro config. And what is the macro config that we want? Basically, we want to define a couple things that are going to help us run our program, as well as define what are all of the valid macros that we can actually use. So what I mean by help us run our program, we're going to need some kind of a hotkey. I'm going to make it configurable. So we're going to need basically like a hotkey that tells us like the key to like kind of quit the program, because again, this is command line based, but the idea is that you might have this running in the background. You don't want to like have to maintain it in a terminal or something. So this hotkey is going to be what kills the process basically. So we're going to say program hotkey, and for now I'm going to say I32. We're going to no, I'm going to say I think we could do a hash set. I'm going to say it's going to be multiple keys. We'll just go ahead and start with that because it's going to be what we want in the end. And I think they're I32. So yeah, we're going to give it I32s. And this is because the Windows API uses I32s for the keys. They call it a V key, virtual key code, and they're all i32s under the hood. So rather than like casting and everything, we're just going to go ahead and start with an i32. And what I'm basically doing here by making it a hash set is we might have multiple keys that build up whatever our combo is. So control F6 is what I want to use to kill the program. So we basically feed both of those hotkeys, or we feed control and we feed F6 as two different values into the set. We can't have the same key more than once, so it doesn't make sense to make it like a vector or something. Well, I mean it does, but the hash set, by being a set, it enforces that we only have one copy of each key. So it's just a little bit nicer, given that we know we can't have the same key more than once. So we're going to do that. Program hotkey is what I'm going to call it. And then the main thing I want to add in right now that's going to be useful is our actual macros. So a macro is going to be essentially a list of, well, we're going to have multiple macros, so it's going to be a vector. And I'm thinking I'll make another macro. Yeah, I'll make a macro struct. And then here we'll have, if I can type. So here, this is getting a little bit more nested than I would probably like, but it'll be fine. So here we're going to say commands is going to be a vector of commands, and then we're going to say enum command, and then we're going to have to give it some values. So let's go ahead and start deriving some stuff. Debug. I think we could do copy and clone. And I want to do serialize, deserialize. Now we need both. I can't, oh right, I can't do copy because of the hash set, right. So we'll just scoot these down and put it in front of each of these. Should make everything nice and happy now. Okay, so now we need to think about some of the different commands that we can do with our macro program here. So some of the ideas that I have is we want to say set mouse position, and I think, yeah, it should be i32s because in a multi-monitor configuration, your primary monitor, the top left, is 0, 0, and it actually goes negative when you go to your left monitor. So I think they use i32s for the mouse position. And then if we're setting the mouse, we probably also want to use the mouse. So we're going to say left click, right click, and we could do middle click as well, but it's the same thing. So I'm probably not going to put as many variants as I did when I built this out the other day, just because if you could, I mean, even right click is a bit redundant, but that's fine. Just for simplicity, it's, you know, fewer things that we have to define. So we can left click, we can right click, and let's say we want to be able to press a key. And I think that's going to be the same V key codes, virtual key codes. They're called V key, but VK codes. It's just, I don't know, something about it that just breaks my brain. Because they like listed in a couple different ways a lot of times in documentation. So I try to say both at the same time. It just doesn't work. So press key, good. And while I'm thinking about it, we also need a hotkey. We need a macro hotkey as well, because we need to know how to enable and disable the macro. So we have a macro hotkey, and then we have the commands for the macro. Perfect. So yeah, we can press a key and we can wait, and that's going to take in, I think, a U32. I believe that's what we use for thread sleeping. And then we also want a loop, which takes in a vector of commands, takes in as it works. I mean, it's kind of like a parameter. So we're going to take also an U32, which is going to represent the number of iterations of the loop. And then the vector of commands is everything that you're going to be looping, right? So if we bring in a value of 100 and then give it like, you know, some commands here, like type the letter J, then, and that's the only command we give it, then it's going to type 100 J's. That's the idea there. So yeah, that's probably good enough, because I mean, if you can define one command, you can define any command that you want. So I don't really think we need anything else to push forward here. I'm going to compare to what I have in my previous implementation of this, just to see if anything stands out as like, ooh, I need to update this or make a change. But let's see. No, these are all functions. Yeah, so I have a, you know what, that's actually a good one. If I'm going to do press key, we're going to say also press key combo, and that's going to take another hash set. And I'm taking in a U16 there for some reason. We'll try both and see what makes it happy. We could always change it, right? No big deal. Also, that's what I'm forgetting. My deal's not open on my phone. Hang on. There we go. And I have loop, which is basically the same thing, except I used a different syntax. I said self, a vac of self. So it's the same thing. I have left click, middle click, right click, wait. I also have a get mouse location. That one can be useful because it's pretty hard to know where your mouse is positioned. So yeah, we don't need anything there. And actually, that's pretty much it. The only difference is, yeah, that's 9 variants. This is 8, right? Yeah. The only difference is the middle click, so I might end up doing it anyway. So we'll end up with basically the same thing I built recently. And then, yeah, so I have a nice thing there. I'm not going to look at that right now. Yep, and that's the same thing. Cool. So this macro struct is going to be basically, that's the same thing as I did before. And yeah, the config. The only difference in the config here is I'm making this hotkey configurable. And last time I did not do that. So here we have a nice big ol' like config setup of structs and enums that's going to drive our entire program here. So let's get some fields here. Program hotkey. What is that going to be? See, this is where it's good to have some references. Actually, I'm going to show how to do this though as well. I'm going to reference a lot of things from my other code, just to make this, you know, short and simple, rather than digging around documentation. I'm looking for the hotkey right now. Bear with me. Where is my main? There it is. And yeah, so there's some big old nasty like name spacing you have to go through to get to this. That's why I wanted to go ahead and pull this in. And we can look at how we see this in the documentation as well. And so what we actually see here though is that this is a U16, not an I32. So the virtual key ends up mapping to a U16, and the value here is 162 for left control. So that's the number that I actually care about. So I'm going to change all of the keys to U16s because I made a mistake. Okay, there we go there. So fix that. So I could do this a couple of ways. So what I can do is I can grab this here, and we need a hash set. I could do from. And then I think you can take a vector and you can say like this. It's going to be mad about the type. Yeah. I think, how do we do this? I might need to double check something. Let me just grab the value for now. 162. Okay, no, it's not happy with this. There is a syntax for it, and I never remember it. So we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way. Let mute temp set equal. We'll just say hotkey. Not in 32. I do that all the time. Okay, and then we'll go down here. We'll say hotkey. Notice we got a resolution there, so we know it's U16 now. And then here I want to say hotkey dot, and it's insert. Yep, and we're gonna say 162. So that is VK left control. And this thing is mad too, so we're gonna say Vec. It's gonna autofill that in and things are gonna be a little less angry. Tired of all the highlighting there being mad at me. We'll fix it in a moment. So we insert 162. And I wanna try that other syntax in here real quick for this garbage. See if I can actually use one of these. So VK F6 is what I want. And I thought there was a thing you could do here. .0. Yeah, so we could do that. And even though it's like pretty ugly, I kind of prefer doing that here because 162 is not really readable. And in this case, 117 is not really readable, right? So this is much more readable. It's easier to tell what's actually being used. So I'm gonna go with that. And in the other case, I also did left shift. So let's just bring in left shift as well. It's like a pretty meaty hotkey, so you're not accidentally triggering it when you're trying to do other things or something. So there's our hotkey to like enable the program. So that's fun. And then here, we're gonna say vec new. Actually, no, we could just do what I did. Yeah, just use the macro for that. Okay, and just a reminder, macros are going to consist of a hotkey and commands. So we're going to include a macro here. And the hotkey, I do need to see that syntax for making a new hash set. I thought there was a really easy way to do it. Let's see if it shows up in here real quick. Oh, it's an array. That's all it is. Okay, that's super easy. Well, we'll do it here. Yeah, I'm not blocking that good. So we could just do hash set from and give it an array. Hard-coded array. So I knew that it was like easy, but I mean, you can still do it with a vec, I guess, but okay, we need a couple hotkeys here. I'm gonna be really lazy and just do Control and F6. And then we're gonna auto format this because it's looking terrible. Okay, and then for the commands, now this is where it's gonna get fun, right? So for the commands, what I want to do at the moment is basically, whoops, why did I do that? What I want to do at the moment is basically build out all of the commands just to see how they get formatted in the config. So let's grab, oh, I went too far, or I didn't go far enough over. So we'll just grab that there. Be lazy. And for these, I'll just put like 12, 13, 14, 15, or whatever. That's fine. And for the loop, well, it's just another vector. That should be good enough. That proves the point. And for this one here, a key combo, we're gonna say I don't really care about the values. Why is this mad? Oh, whoops. I copied things I didn't need. There we go. That should make it happy. Sweet. Okay. It's a lot, but we got a working thing here, I think. At least enough to get a config file. So we're going to do a cargo run, and we have a macroconfig.yaml here. So this is what it's going to look like. We have a program hotkey. Now, I know this is not great to look at. What is 162? What is 160? This doesn't really mean anything to the human eye. So let's take a look at the browser. I'm just going to show how these work real quick. We're going to say Windows VK codes. I think what I always say is VK key. That's what always trips me up. But it's a virtual key code, but I just think VK key for some reason. So virtual key codes, and this is it right here. They're actually hex values, but I mean we're seeing it in a decimal value over there, but they're given to us in hex values here. So be careful if you're going to be inputting these values. Make sure you have the correct value. But what we're looking at here is there's control, but there's a left control, VKL control, and that's OXA2, which should map to the value that we saw earlier. L shift, oh, it's right there, yeah. L shift is right there. VKF6 I put in, that's OX75, and so on. Basically, this is how we get those values and actually know what it is that those represent. There is a way you could actually build a mapping out so that the user could type in something in the config that's not just a number. And that could be a fun exercise to add that in, and you have your serialization and deserialization for that, so that when it gets written to the config, you might see like an actual F instead of whatever F is down here. So you would see OX46, or you'd see the decimal representation for that. So that would be the idea. I'm not going to be doing that right now, but that's the idea of what you'd be going for. All right, so let's get back over here and start thinking about how this thing works now. Well, actually, before we even do that, let's read the config. So we're going to say include string, and it's going to be what? .. macroconfig.yaml. And then let macro config equal oh, whoops, I need to actually assign this to something. Let macro config string equal that, and then here we're just going to say macro config equals ser.yaml from string, and it's macro config string. And we're just going to use a question mark here. Oh, that's another thing I didn't go over. I brought in that anyhow crate for errors, so we're returning anyhow error, and yeah, that's basically all we're doing there. By doing this in any function, essentially, by making this your return type, you get to use these question mark operators to essentially unwrap something and then just fail if it doesn't work. And if you know you want to do that, then just go for it, right? It's easy. You probably wouldn't want this in production. You would probably want to be a little more explicit with your error handling, but it's, it's a lot cleaner and nicer than unwrap. And in like a nested function somewhere lower down in your code, it can actually be really useful because you might want to bubble up an error. So this would be perfect for doing that. It's not quite like an unwrap in that it doesn't panic. It does bubble up the error or the result, whatever you're working on. So in this case, we get back a result. I say error or result. I mean, if you got a sum, or if you have a result, an option. There's the word. Sorry, it's been a long day. Okay, an option or a result. It basically grabs the value from that and assigns it, or does whatever with it, or bubbles up the fail case for it. So in the case of an option, it would be a none. In the case of a result, it would be an error. So there we go. Now we're gonna read that in, and I did debug on it. So if I do a log here, do this, you can check out the macro config, see it on the command line, we'll be happy. There it is. Not super readable, we could do this, make it a little more readable. It's what we expect to see, right? We have all the commands. I just fed it. We have, here's our loop, here's everything. Pretty straightforward. Shouldn't be any surprises here. The one thing that to me is important is to understand how, say, the loop works here, since it's nested. And in fact, maybe it'd even be valuable to put a deeper command like set mouse position or something in the loop. But I think we see how that one would work. Like, I think basically we just copied this and put it at this indentation and scooted these in. I think that's how we would do it. And just for fun, I'm going to try that. So I'm going to comment out all of this, actually, all of this, because we don't need it anymore. Yep, and there we go. So it works just as expected. We now have an extra command in our loop. And basically, this is what you would be asking the user to write. It's not too complex. If you have a user who's trying to define macros to run tasks on their computer, I think they'd be willing to write something like this. I don't think this would be asking too much, because it's not really something that, the really average user is going to be doing. It's a little bit more of a power user kind of task. Not super power user, but somewhere kind of more on that spectrum. Your like 80-year-old grandparents are not going to be making macros like this, most likely. So I don't think this is asking too much to work with a syntax like this. And if you provide at the top of the config an example or something, or provide a README with it to explain, here's how the syntax works, here's how you fill in commands, then I think it would be, perfectly fine. I think people would be able to adapt to it. So I'm okay with that. We could also look into switching formats to something else too. TOML will not work in this case, but there are other formats which may be a good fit for this. But I'm happy enough with this for now. So we're going to go with YAML and just proceed on. So I'm going to actually copy this or cut this. I'm going to put this down below, because I don't really want to get rid of it in case I want to build out more macros or something in the code. If I really make a big change on something, then it'd be nice to have a template basically to work with, rather than having to rebuild all of what I just did. Because I just spent a lot of time getting that config set up, basically. All right, so let's also get rid of the hello world. It was just there for fun when we started. So here we are. Gargo build. And now it's complaining about file and write, because the only purpose for file and write was to create that. But that's the reason I decided to leave them in. We'll worry about that later. Okay, so we have read in our config. And now all we have to do is run the macro. I mean, that sounds really easy, doesn't it? So there are a couple gotchas that will happen here. And I'm questioning how much I should go ahead and think ahead or how much we should iterate. And I'm leaning more towards the iteration here because I would like to demonstrate how we can get a more naive implementation working and then like branch that into something better. I think the next thing we're going to end up spending the most time on, by the way, is all the Windows API stuff. It's going to be a blast. I am going to largely reference, I'll demonstrate a little bit of how to do it for like one of them with the documentation and stuff, but it's a pain. So I'm largely just going to reference my existing code where I've already worked all that stuff out. it's, it's better. I'm still going to explain everything I'm doing. It's not going to be copy paste. I'm going to type it all out and like explain it. But I just don't feel like refiguring out every nuance of the Windows API because it's not fun. Also, my neck is stiff. Okay, so the naive approach to do this that I can think of that I like is basically we want to loop because the idea behind this program is that it's going to keep running and then you just run macros as needed. So we want to run a loop here and not really exit until we get the top level program hotkey. And this is what's telling us, okay, yeah, this is what kills the program. So that's going to be our check to see if we should leave the program or if we should exit the program. So this is where I want to do that, is right here. So if program hotkey is pressed, exit program. Simple. Nothing to it really, right? So how do we do that though? How do we check if a key is pressed? Well, that's where we get to have the fun that I was talking about, the Windows API. I happen to know there are some functions in the Windows API already because I've done this one a handful of times. I should say part of my motivation for this is because I've done so many programs that have hard-coded commands essentially that like get or send user input. I've done that so many times that I liked the idea of building out something more generic so I don't have to do as much hard coding every time and build out an entirely new program just to run what is essentially a simple macro. I've basically built entire programs that like autoplay like idle like clicker type games and stuff, but it's all very hard coded, and most of that could be extrapolated into something like we're building today, a set of commands that you just execute rather than like hard coding in those commands to the program. But not entirely though, because if you're actually getting like memory access or something, that does get a little more complicated. So anyway, we're looking for the how to figure out, the state of a key basically, because we want to check, is that hotkey being pressed? So the simple way to do it here is get async key state. So Windows API get async key state. And this is just how to, I just figured this out years ago. The question was simply, well, I'm sure the Windows API has a way to figure out what's going on with keys, so just Google around. And this is what I came to. It determines whether a key is up or down at the same time, at the time the function is called, and whether the key was pressed after a previous call to get async key state. So there are a couple ways to use this. I don't know if they show the easy examples here. There are tons of examples online on like Stack Overflow and stuff of people figuring out how to use this damn thing. But what we need to do is we need to look at what it returns. If it succeeds, the return value specifies whether the key was pressed since the last call to get async key state and whether it's currently up or down. If the most significant bit is set, the key is down. And if the least significant bit is set, it was pressed after the previous call. However, you should not rely on this last behavior. For more information, see remarks. And there's some stuff here about the preemptive multitasking nature of Windows and Another application can call get async key state and blah, blah, blah. So there's some weirdness there, and it says you shouldn't rely on it. We're not going to have to worry about that anyway. We are going to worry about that. We're going to be checking the most significant bit. That's the thing we care the most about here. And we're basically going to be using that to find out, hey, is this key currently being pressed? So the other thing to consider, first of all, it also takes in an int, a v key, which is the virtual key code that we already saw. So the other thing to consider is how to call this in Rust, because the Windows API is not Rust. So how do we do it? Well, we have the Windows crate. So we just search Rust Windows and docs.microsoft.com. That's not the one I want. GitHub. Yeah, the GitHub one. And I think we scrolled down. No, where is it? This one, yeah. Ah, it's blinding. I can feel my cornea melting. Get async key state. And if we wait for that, we should find something, hopefully. Yeah, so we have this thing here in the, we're going to want the one here in keyboard and mouse. I don't know why there's another one in core window and whatever this iCore window is and all that. We're going to get this one here in keyboard and mouse, get async key state. So if we click on that, we can see it's basically exactly what we just saw on the Windows side of things. It takes in a V key, which in this case actually is an i32. So that may have been why I made that mistake earlier and said i32. So we may have a bit of weirdness going on with the types here. I'm not sure why Microsoft's own Windows crate. Oh no, because they use int here. Yeah. Virtual key codes. Whatever. We'll worry about that later. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So the virtual keys should be i32s. So that is my mistake. And I'm probably going to have to update this again, because I don't want to do the casting back and forth. But we're never going to have a virtual key code that's like going to be that large anyway, so it doesn't matter. I just want to reduce on casting because it's annoying to just keep casting things back and forth. So we're gonna do the i32, and then we're going to get an i16 back. As always, it is unsafe, so we're gonna write our own little wrapper around it, and that's why I said this is gonna end up taking the most time. We're gonna have to build these wrappers for every single function so that we can have like better control over what's actually going on. So this is the important part, because that's a nasty, like, I don't know how to even figure that out, like off the top of my head. I mean, we could go into the Windows documentation too and get a lot of information about where it's at. This doesn't fully map though, but we have keyboard and mouse input. Yeah, it doesn't fully map. So your best bet is to go in here to figure out like where is this at, and also what features are required. So I've already included these features when I set up the boilerplate earlier, so we're good. So I'm gonna just copy all that mess, and we're gonna bring it back over here into Visual Studio Code here, and we're gonna start making a function to get async key state. But what I'm gonna do is, rather than saying get async key state, my function is just going to be is the key pressed, because that's all I'm looking to do, right? All I care about is the key pressed. So we're going to say fn is key pressed. I'm not going to say is key pressed. We're just going to say key pressed, and we're going to return a bool. No, we're going to return a result. Bool or anyhow error. And hopefully we should never see that. Also, I totally put the wrong thing. There we go. Yep, you're mad. So we'll just say true to make it not mad. All right. We'll do that to keep it from being mad at me while I work on this. And then we're going to want to call this. In order to do that, we need, what was it, an i32. So we're going to say v key i32 is our input parameter here. So that's cool. And then we can say vkey, and now it's going to complain because it's unsafe. So we're going to want to wrap that bad boy up. And in order to do that, oops, we're going to say, the way I want to do this now is I'm going to say if unsafe. And that returns a an I16. So we can actually just operate directly on that I16 rather than we're not converting it to a Boolean or anything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double check what the constant is. Oh, we could just use a 1, right? Okay. So yeah, to check if the key is pressed, we're going to compare it to 1, which is basically this. So that should be good. We don't need the if. Yeah, I'm gonna actually change up how I'm doing this. We're just gonna straight return a bool, but I want to double check something before I commit to that. Let's go back to the documentation here. And yeah, it just returns an I16. It can't fail, right? I mean, it should never fail. That's the idea. Remarks, it returns true. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're good. I had the other examples. This is why you should pay attention to... Well, I guess there are cases where it could fail, but we don't have any way to differentiate. Yeah. Because presumably, if we read this, if it succeeds, the return value will set 2 bits at most. Otherwise, I can assume we also get a 0 in this case. And then as for this, we get a 0 if the current desktop is not the active one, and if the foreground thread belongs to another process and the desktop does not allow the hook or the journal record. But we can't seem to discern that between the success case. So as far as we're concerned, that's equivalent to the key is not pressed. If we switch over to another one like play sound, we actually get a true and a false, and we can actually discern, okay, we're in a legit error case here. So we can actually do something with that. So that was my bad. I didn't pay enough attention to what async key state returns. So we're just going to do that quick, easy conversion there. We're going to check against 1, which is all we need to do to check if the key is actually currently pressed. So very simple. Even though it seems like it's going to be complex or something, in this case, very simple. Now note, we are doing single ampersand here because it is a bitwise operator. We're checking against the bit itself. So that's what we care about in this case. So we're using a bitwise operator. We're not doing like something like that. So yeah, that's all we need to do to make it happy. So with that said, that should tell us that our key is being pressed. We also have something else that we can do though, and this is where it gets a little more interesting. And this is where I'm going to mention some other stuff. So key held. I'm going to mention some other stuff that I'm not going to fully go into here because it gets a little funky. But we're going to basically do the same thing, except we're going to check it against something a little bit different. So we're going to say Windows, Win32, UI, input, keyboard and mouse, get async key state, vkey, and now this is our nasty constant here. OX 8000 I16 not equal 0. And oh, whoops, I did not. That's what I needed. Okay, so we're going to get back an I-16 from this. So we're also going to check against an I-16. And what this is essentially a hard-coded value just to set that bit that we want to check. And you can find it out by opening up like the programmer calculator in Notepad, or not, in the Windows calculator. I don't know why I said Notepad. You can open up the programmer calculator and you can set a bunch, like you can set which bits you actually want. So that's one way you can like check these values if you don't actually know what the value is going to be. But again, we were told we could check the least significant and the most significant bits. So it turns out that if you check against this one here, you could find out if the key is like actively being held. So a lot of times this is the one I care to use a little bit more. And the way that I found out about this initially was with the first time I ever did this was by looking at like different Stack Overflow like posts and just people saying like, I don't know how to make this thing work, like it's not detecting the keys. And this is where I found out about this, and it works really good for hotkeys where you're going to hold Control Shift and then like press another button. So there it is. That's our function. We're going to be using that, and we'll probably use key pressed as well. So let's go ahead and build something out that actually uses this. Also, I am reading what you said, Tusk. And yeah, that was interesting the other day. But I'm glad to see you. What's going on, dude? All right, so let's check the hotkeys now. We wrote a couple functions that can check against key presses. So we're going to say, now this one is going to be interesting. Let me think about this for a moment. I need to do, normally I'm hard coding in something. So I would say if key held, key one, you know, and key whatever, right? I can't do that here. And the reason I can't do that is because I have a hash set of keys. So what I need to say is macro config dot program hotkey dot iter. So we're going to say, how do I want to do this? There's a couple ways to do it. I came up with a good solution the other day. So what I want to do is check all three of them basically sequentially and maintain state to confirm that they're actually all held down, they're all being pressed. And there, I think there's actually like a very nice, more functional way to do this. So I'm going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole trying to do that. All takes a closure and then returns true or false. It applies this closure to each element of the iterator, and if they all return true, then so does all. Yes, that's it. That's the sexy functional way to do it. So all we do here is say key, and it gave us a U16, which is what we expect. We're gonna say if, whoops, if, and then we're gonna do this all thing here, and we're gonna say break. And now inside the all, yeah, that's good. Okay. And let me catch up on what Tuss was saying. Mid-conversation. Yeah. No, I figured you disappeared. I assume that's what happened. It's all good, though. Things are good. I mean, I'm happy to be writing a little program here. It's a fun program. Building a, like a macro runner, right? So if you want to like automate something on your computer, you want to, like you got a game you're playing or something and you want to automate some input because you're tired of like clicking the same stuff over and over, pressing the same buttons over and over, whatever. I mean, that's basically what we're building right now. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna say key pressed key. and it's mismatched. So it expected an I-32 and it found a U-16. I think we do need to switch this back to an I-32. I know, it's frustrating. So press key there is an I-32. This hash set needs to be an I-32. This one needs to be an I-32. But now, who is mad and why? Key pressed. Why are you still a U16? Program hotkey. Oh, that's why. Because I didn't change all of them. Okay. It found a reference, so we'll just do that there, dereference that, boom, we're good. Okay, so this is kind of a, hopefully it's going to work. Might need to do key held on some of that, which would make it more complex. We're going to try key pressed here on all three, and should be good to go. So what we should see is log info in loop. We should see a bunch of loops here, and then I'm gonna do a sleep here. We're gonna say a duration of 200. Oh wait, I need to do from millis. Just put a little bit of a sleep here so it doesn't just completely bog down the thread. And we are not getting what I expected. Oh, did I do build? That's why. Oops. All right, Control Shift F6. It's not picking it up. Did I do, is that what I used as the config? Well, that's not readable. Let's take a look. Left control, left shift, and F6. Yeah, that's what I have. Yeah, this is where we... Oh, there we go. Yeah, so this is one problem with the... Yeah, this is one problem with the way we're doing this right now, and this is what I said, it's a naive solution. We might be able to do key held. Not hey. Key held. Yeah, it might be a little bit more reliable, but I still run into some issues, and this is because of the sleep in the thread. Basically, if I'm not exactly pressing that right when this happens, if I'm not pressing it at the right time, then it won't immediately register it. It's weird. We're gonna make it a little better though. We're gonna make it more reliable. What is happening? Every time I format it, it's like it does something different. Okay. But yeah, we're good there. So that's a fun little way to check the program hotkey. So basically, if the program needs to exit, we do that. It's cool, right? Otherwise, we want to actually run all the commands. Well, not run all the commands. We want to check whether or not we should run a macro and then run it. So how do we do that? Well, we need to basically do exactly what I did there, but do that for every macro that we've defined. So for macro, in macro config.macros.iter. Oh, it doesn't like that word, does it? For macro MCRO, we're gonna go with that. For mcro in macro config.macros.iter, so we're gonna loop through all those, and then we're gonna do some work for every single macro, and it's basically gonna be what we just saw there, except we're gonna then have to run the commands. So this is still a naive implementation. We're gonna have to make it a little bit cleaner and better, but the idea here is if mcro dot macro hotkey dot iter dot all key And we're going to do the exact same thing here. We're just going to say key held. So if they're all being held, then we want to run the commands. So inside of here, we're basically going to spin up a loop that's going to say run the commands, roughly speaking. So for and now we have, yeah, see, I knew this was going to be, oh, right, I need to do this, that's why. Yeah, all right. Okay, so in here, we simply do something like command.execute. Now, what is execute? We haven't defined it. So there's a couple ways we can go about doing this, by the way. I'm going to opt to do it on command. So we're going to generate an execute method. What that's going to do here is it's going to do some weird pub create stuff that I don't care about because, well, that's not how I'm writing this. I'm just throwing it all here in one file. And I also don't want to put it below main. I want to put it up there next to the commands because I like to keep my impl blocks next to the actual definition or next to the declaration of the type. It's a lot cleaner, easier to follow. There's way too much spacing there. Okay, now I'm happy. I could have written that myself much quicker at this rate. Okay, so we have a command that we were given and we're going to execute that command. So the thing is, we don't know what kind of command it is, so we're going to have to do a match on self, and that's going to allow us to basically fill in code for each command. And right now we don't really have any of these that work because I haven't written functions for any of these. I don't know yet if I want to return anything. So I'm going to just, actually I think I do. I think I would like to be able to return maybe an error state if something goes wrong, and we might be able to handle that at some point. But right now, we're just going to say this right here. And it's so mad because all those to-dos. See, that's what I don't like about to-do. That I really don't like how to-dos just kind of break everything. Or at least they break the linting. They break that parsing, and it's really annoying. So I'm going to copy, not copy, but I'm going to do Control H on that and say that right there. That's just going to make it a little easier to not have everything like yelling at me. Okay, so what do we want to do here? Well, we want to start implementing these things. And I think the first one I want to do here is press key. So we're going to say press key gave us a key. It's an I32. And then I'm going to say press key. That as easy as that. And then we'll bubble up the error, basically. We're going to generate press key function. And we're going to give it that same result thing. Well, I need to double check something too. So this is another time where you want to reference the Windows API. And you want to reference the Windows crate docs and check both of those to kind of figure out where does all this come from, like, because these code or these like namespaces and stuff that you have to go through to get to the code is pretty gross. I don't want to have to worry too much about that, so I'm going to be writing these based largely on what I've done in the past because, yeah, it's easier. I think we get more out of it if I'm not sitting here for another hour figuring out each of these functions that I'm going to have to do. So what I am going to do here is a separate thing for key down. Called a V key in my other one. All right, so we're going to do key down and key up. And then we're just going to do the OK here. And of course, we don't have a key down or a key up. So Let's start with key down. Fortunately, key up is going to be like the exact same thing as key down. We're going to change like one thing. So that's going to be nice. Let's bubble up that anyhow. And this is where it's going to get a little messy now. So bear with me here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to, just to make the rest of the code cleaner, we're going to put a use in here. We're going to say Windows, was it Win32? What is it? UI, input, keyboard and mouse. And then we're going to get multiple. So we need something called send input, aptly named, input 0, and input keyboard. A lot of stuff there that we're going to be using. It's all unused right now, obviously. Stop complaining. I'll use it soon. Key up, by the way, as I think I already said, is going to be exactly the same as this. We're going to be changing one thing. It's very simple. But I like the idea of separating key down and key up, because what if for some reason you want to simulate holding a key? And in fact, I thought I had an option for that. Oh, I did. Yeah, I know how I did it. Okay, we'll get back to that later. Yeah, if you want to simulate the idea of holding a key, you just key down and don't do a key up, right? Obviously. So I do like the idea of having separate options for both of those, rather than just one single way to press a key. And then that doesn't work if you're trying to press multiple keys at the same time, like for a hotkey. So you do need some separation of the two, but they're basically the same. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to be calling send input. And if I can look at it here, it takes in p inputs, which is an array of input, and a CB size, and it returns a U32. So the first thing we need is we're going to need to get rid of, or we're going to need to get this p inputs thing ready, which is why we have this input here. So let's go ahead and start building that out. So let mute input, and it's an input. Well, we don't need to specify the type because we're just going to say input here, and then these are going to be some funky looking types or field names. So check this out. What is this? It's so weird. So this R type, what is it? I don't think it gives us any real info here, unfortunately. Doesn't really. But what this is where we specify the actual type that we're using. So if you want to take a guess at how we might do mouse input, now's the time to do it. But here we're doing keyboard input, so we give it an input keyboard, and then anonymous, we do that input 0, why is it, oh. Yeah. We do that input 0, and basically just figure that out by looking at the documentation. We can see the autocomplete here, though it tells us anonymous is an input 0 field, or is an input 0 type, I mean. So we give it default because, I mean, I'm lazy, I don't see any reason not to. I'm just gonna give it default. That makes it happy, and it works because I've tested it. So these are things that it does, at least in my experience, require a little bit of trial and error to figure out the first time around, like, how do we make these damn things work? All right, so then let's take another look back at this here. So we have the P inputs, and we have CB size. Let's see. Why am I? Oh, right, of course. So there's something else to this that you wouldn't even know about yet. And this is, again, you got to break this thing apart, dig into it a little bit. Maybe I should show a little bit more about this one here in a minute. I think I'm going to, but bear with me before we get there because it's going to be a little confusing. So what we actually need is to define a little bit more, because we need a place to insert the actual key into our input, because we haven't actually specified what key we're pressing. And that actually goes into this input here, but it's very indirect at how we get to it. So unfortunately, this is unsafe. anonymous.ki, which is keyboard input. And you see it's actually resolved it here to a keyboard input type. So now that we have that, we could do keyboard input and we get a few things here. So this is a good chance that I am going to go over to the browser and let's take a little closer look at this before I keep throwing new things on, because it is definitely going to be getting confusing. So Windows API keyboard input. Let's take a look at it. Keyboard input. Send input. This is what we're dealing with right now. And what we're actually dealing with is the input structure. So the input structure, it's a union. This is why it's getting so weird in the Rust code right now. It's a union, and it can be a mouse input or a keyboard input or a hardware input. Presumably a hardware input could be something like a game controller. I've never tried it though, so who knows? We can take a look at it real quick. Yeah, an input device other than a keyboard or mouse. You could probably figure out what to put in there to simulate a game controller or something if you wanted. So you could do a lot there. We need to take a look at keyboard input. And here we have the struct that we're basically looking at now. And if you're paying attention on the Rust code, we just saw things like DW flags and DW extra info. This is what we care about right now. So we want to see what all these different fields are. So WVK is the virtual key code. Well, it's self-explanatory, easy enough. WSCAN, a hardware scan code for the key. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that, but just something to be aware of. That's what that field is. DW flags, this is the one that we care about a lot. It specifies various aspects of a keystroke. It can be certain combinations of the following values. We can have extended key, a key up. So that one's going to be important. We can have a scan code, and then we can have Unicode. So I'm just going to leave that up to, I'm not going to go through all of that right now. If you care about that, you can read that on your own. So we also have D-word time. Time, its type is a D-word. And it's just the timestamp for the event in milliseconds. If the parameter is 0, the system will provide its own timestamp, so I don't really care about it. I'll let the system handle it. And finally, DW extra info. It's a unsigned long pointer, an additional value associated with the keystroke, and we get message extra info to obtain some information. We're not going to have to deal with that. All right, so that's just kind of an overview of what all this stuff means. So you're going to see me messing with a couple of these fields now. Hopefully you have a better idea what it is. There are some times where it's not going to map one-to-one to the Rust code and the Windows API, and that's where you have to go to the Rust crate and kind of look at how they may have remapped something a little bit. So again, that's the learning curve, that's the difficulty in dealing with this kind of foreign function interfacing, I guess. I mean, this crate is essentially like a big foreign function interface. It abstracts a lot of the nasty stuff from you, but it's still pretty nasty, in my opinion. So we care about the key code. So WVK equals, and then you can actually do this. We can put virtual key in here as well. We can actually do this. Except, see, this is where it's a little frustrating, because all the functions that wanted, the virtual key before, that were using virtual keys, were I32, right? If we go back to, oh right, I already hid this. Let's grab this and take a look at it again real quick. I don't know why this inconsistency is here, so we're going to have to do a little bit of casting, and that's what I was afraid of. I was hoping, normally, if you're having to do a lot of casting, you should question your data types and say, well, why am I having to cast? I must be using the wrong data type. So we see U16 in some places and I32 in other places. So I'm going to go with the I'm just going to stick with what we have, and I'm going to do casting. This is the U16 though, so there's some reason I changed it to an i32. Where was it? I think it was get async key state takes the i32. Yeah, get async key state. I don't know why. Probably because you might be able to check other things and it needs a broader range. Not sure. I'd have to look more into why they did that. Also, I see we got a... Yo, what's going on, St. Nicholas Stu? Things are good. How about you? It's like I see I got a message. I got to click over and see what's up. I feel like it's been a minute. I hope things are good for you. Okay, so virtual key. So unfortunately, we're going to have to cast this to a U16. Now that gives potential issues, but I don't think it's ever going to be a problem here. Casting a wider type to a more narrow type can be problematic as well. I'm going to pretend it's not happening. There's some weirdness here, and we should never have something that's like 4 billion or 2 billion or whatever as an i32. If we do, that's already, we got problems. All right, so we've now assigned the virtual key code to the keyboard input that we're working with. And now comes the fun part. So we're going to send the input. And it's going to be a little weird because we're going to do some checking on it. And I'm going to do this like I've done it before. So we're going to do send input. And the first thing we need is that P inputs, and it's an array of inputs. So we've defined an input here. So I can just give it an array that we just build on the fly here. Now what you can actually do is you can put in multiple inputs. I could say like input 2, input 3. You can actually define multiple things that you send all at the same time if you want to do that for some reason. That's why it's an array. And then we need that CB size, which we're going to have to do this here. So we're going to get the size of the input struct. And we have to cast that to an i32 because we do. Not equal 1. I am indeed playing Rust. Yo, if the Rust game were like this, I actually like the Rust game, but I don't like the more multiplayer centric focus of games like that. But if it were like this, I'd be playing. There are online programming games. There's a game called Screeps where you have little, it's like an online multiplayer real-time strategy, and you define, you like design AI for your different creature types, and then like they go off and they collect resources and they build up and they attack each other and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Which Rust are you talking about, Tusk? Okay, so what we've done here, back to this for a minute. Let's go to the browser and take another look at send input. I'm not going to do this for everything, but I am going to do this for the first one here. And then the rest, I'm going to be kind of like, you can refer to the docs if you need more info. But we're going to be here for like another 2 hours if I got to do this for all of them. So I'm teaching you how to do it, and you can then do it later. So send input. It returns uint. It returns the number of events that it successfully inserted into the keyboard or mouse input stream. If it returns 0, the input was already blocked by another thread. So basically, if it returns 0, then we fail. But it also says, note that neither getLastError nor the return value will indicate the failure was caused by a certain type of blocking. So you really don't know how it was blocked, which is unfortunate. But you do know that, okay, there was some kind of problem. We couldn't send the keyboard, like, all right, whatever. Or we couldn't send the event. So that's really all we need to know. That if it returns 0, it fails. Otherwise, it's successful. That's all we care about. Hold on, give me just one moment. Sorry about that. Indeed, Tusk. Indeed, indeed. Okay. So, yeah, that's what we care about, that it is not 0. That's what indicates success. That's the simplest way to think about it. So let's come back over here. What I'm actually doing here is checking for failure first, which is the same. Checking for not 1, because I know I'm inputting a single input, and it said that the number we get back is the number of successful events that were placed in the queue. So if we don't get 1, then we know we failed. So we can say this here. We can return an error. We're going to use this anyhow. I never know the syntax for this. And we're going to say failed to send key down for that. And we're going to pull in another thing here that I haven't done yet. Boom. Okay. Now, get last Windows error is something I'm going to have to define. I know you can't find it. I'm fine. Be that way. So let's define this like here up at the top. Okay, get last Windows error. So what is this? It's going to be a function that basically gets us back some information on whatever happened. It is built into Windows, so it's going to be another Windows API thing. And it's actually pretty simple. It just returns a value, and then you have to go look up that value on the Windows documentation. So if it returns like error 163, then you go look up 163 on the Windows documentation, and it'll tell you what it is. So it gives us back a U32, and it's going to be unsafe because it's Windows API. It's in Windows Win32 Foundation get last error, and we're just going to do .0, and that's going to get us back the actual value from it. It's a U32. So that's all there is to that. Nice and simple, nice and easy, and boom, there's our key down function done. Seems like a lot, and it kind of is. Key up is going to be the same thing. We already saw that, but there's one more thing. And that is that we have to define that we're pressing, or that we're releasing a key, excuse me. So let's go back here to this here, the D word. That's a funny thing to say. Or not D word, the DW flags, this D word, DW flags here, is if specified, the key is being released. If not specified, the key is being pressed. So we need this key event F key up thing, and we need to put that into the DW flags. So that's going to be our objective now, to do the key up. And once that's good, we are actually ready to probably test that one, kind of. It's not going to be as easy as it sounds, though, and we'll see why. Mainly because we don't have anything else defined. But, so we're in key up now, and we need to take keyboard input.dw flags. And what is that? It is keyboard event flags. So let me go in here and add that as well. Keyboard event flags, boom. So let's say equal keyboard event flags. Let's see. It should already be default, so I shouldn't need to do that. So I think, yeah, it's a U32. Okay, we don't need that. Okay. So we're going to say .0 here equals, where is it? Key event F key up. Now that's actually going to need to be a .0 as well. So what these are these tuple structs. And by doing that dot zero, so the tuple struct, basically it's an anonymous field, struct example I32. So then if I make an example down here, let test equal example 12. Test dot zero is how we get that value out of it. So when you see me doing those dot zeros, that's because those are tuple structs, and we're basically getting at the value inside of the struct. So DW flags, the value, we want it to be the value of this key event key up thing. So that's all there is to it. Everything else is identical. We send the input, we do all the same stuff. Nothing else should change if I've done this right. I mean, maybe I haven't. So what I'm going to need to do is let's fix our macro up a little bit, because I want to press a few keys. So we're going to go to this press key here, and I'm going to add a few more of these. Why are you nesting? Don't nest. That's not what I wanted. Oh, I know why. Because I thought I was being cheeky, but I'm not. I copied the indentation. Alright, so I have 8 of these. Now I'm gonna go click back over to the VK codes, and I'm gonna get the J. I used J as an example earlier. I'm gonna get J, and J is OX4A. I don't know if I could put this into YAML, but we're gonna try. If it's not mad, then I'm happy. And we'll comment everything else out, because we're actually here just to test the keys, because that's the only thing we've implemented. So if I press whatever this macro is, which I think it's Control F6. If I press Control F6, it should spit out like 8 J's. Simple test. If I did everything right, why are you mad? Press key is incorrect. Why? Oh, I need to dereference that. Now who's mad? Cannot find value. V key. Oh. All right, so we'll do key down, then we'll do a key up, and there we are. Unused result that must be used. Let's go ahead and do that and make it happy. Now, this means if something fails, it's actually going to kill the entire program. This is not what you would want to do, but, you know, it's what we have for now. All right, so cargo run. Now, we're running. I'm going to put my cursor here, and I'm going to do Control F6. Something happened. I wonder if... Hold on. No. I think I know what's actually happening. Maybe. Yeah. F6 moves my cursor down here. We see my cursor blinking right here, and I press F6, it's moving down there. What about F5? Oh, don't do that. No debug. Okay, I need a better... Cancel. No launch.json. I don't want to do that. I will ignore it for now. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay. Let's find another hotkey. You know, I can do Control S. It's just going to save the file. It's not going to hurt anything. That'll be a little bit of an easier... Or there's the other option that the YAML didn't resolve that correctly. Because of the hex. We'll find out. I'll do Control S. It'll try to save the file and it'll spit out a bunch of J's if I did that right. No. Okay. Then we have to, you know, figure out what's going on a little bit because something is not lining up. Let me do one more thing. Let me paste that. Let me check that value, OX53. I've done this before, so I might just be missing something obvious. Change to hex. So 53 in hex is 83 in decimal. Paste this in here and try again. No, I'm not getting what I expect. Why not? We definitely have the commands in here, and in fact, earlier it was resolving to 83, so that was correct. Okay, this is fun. We'll figure it out though, right? I see. I'm wondering if it's also not just an issue with the time that we're checking for. Let me drop this to like 50. Let me also kill this because it's annoying now. Okay, well, let's take a look at what's happening here. We're gonna say, I'm gonna put a little bit of debugging in here, a little just print debugging, and see what we can find. If we get this worked out, we should be in good shape. We should not be executing. There's a problem. Did I put the wrong thing in my key held? Let me double check because I've used this before. That seems to be the issue, partially. Also, what is my I'm doing press key. Where is my match statement? It's up here. That could also be part of the issue. Looks okay. So we'll have to figure this out. But obviously something's wrong with what I'm doing down here as well. So I want to compare my held key function to one that I used in the past. I want to compare a couple things real quick. Give me just a moment. So the last time when I built this program a couple of weeks ago, what I used is the... Okay, I did it a little differently. Okay. I mean, I could try something like that again. This is much more elegant, though. That's the reason I wanted to stick with this. One of the other things I did was... we need all of these to be true. If I could type. We need all of them to be true. I was checking against held and pressed, so that's something I might do here as well. But I want to check and compare both of these functions. So let me go to the definition. Let me do that on this other program as well, and let's see what happens. So, because there could be just a slight difference between them, and I want to make sure we're good. So, get async key state on the V key. Now I was actually passing in a virtual key. Making an I-32 out of it. And it could be but I don't think it's a problem. And then we check, yep, and 1 not equals 0. That's good, okay. And then for key is held, could be something where I made a mistake. So get async key state on the V key, and then we do a bitwise AND with negative 0x 8000 I16, all that not equal to 0. And it seems to be pretty happy. Although the difference I have here, though, to be fair, is I killed the unsafe, like, right here. What do you mean you found an I16? Oh, I know what I did. It's a little goofy, but yeah. That's the only difference in the way I set these up. So this should be fine. It could be the little, like, functional thing that I tried there is not performing the way I want it to. So there's really no difference in the way those function. So let's go ahead and try running it again. And we're just executing macro over and over and over. Why? Oh, excuse me, I put it in the wrong place. That's why. We're actually probably okay then. Yeah. So we're okay there. And we'll do Control S. And it's not picking it up. That is bizarre. Now let's take a look at this. All says every element of the iterator has to match some predicate. All of them have to be able to return true. So if they all return true, then so does all. If any of them return false, it returns false. That's exactly what I need it to do. We'll check this one more time. It's very good, Tusk. I mean, I think you get used to it. Shouldn't be too bad. I don't know why this is not going off. For macro, yep. If macro hotkey, we get an iterator over the hotkeys, and then we just check if each one is held or pressed. But it's not registering. Oh, there's actually another thing I want to do while I'm thinking about it. It's very easy, but we're going to go up here. Capital notes lowercase. Not a huge deal, but we can define configs for functions to say this only works on Windows. So what you would do here is if you were building this for multiple operating systems, you would say config Windows, config Linux, etc. And then you would only, you could have the same function for different configs, basically. So it's a way to make your code a little more portable, where there might be unique code for each operating system. Yeah, I'm guessing the problem I see right now is that everything I have basically matches with what I did before. So I can try something a little more old school on how I check the commands. Yeah, so, well, we could try another thing. We could say We could scoot this out of here and say continue. And then we could hide that real quick. Not executing. Let's try reversing the check. Now we're not executing. Well, why? So we went from like always executing to now we're not executing. Clearly I'm missing something, aren't I? Well, either way, let's try putting the execute out here and let's just see what happens. We're gonna say command.execute. Nope, actually we need to do the iter, yeah. You know, we'll just do this. That's valid here. Let's go for it. So we've reversed the check a little bit. I think it's a little less readable this way, but... Oh, wait. If we're checking that, it needs to be... Oh, that's fine. Right? Hang on. No, that's actually, yeah, that's what we want. If either one turns out... yeah. I'm sorry. So the way to break this down is if key held returns false, this actually becomes true. If this returns false, this becomes true. So that's all good. If either one of these... I don't know. That might not actually... I think it needs to be an and. Yeah. It needs to be an and. Okay. The way I checked it before was a little bit different. Not executing is good. No, we shouldn't just execute though. I didn't press that S, by the way. Okay, yeah, so we're getting some weirdness, but we're getting some behavior going now, so that's exciting. Also, I thought I put J. Did I switch it? Oh, I think I did. Oh, wait. I meant to change the hotkey. I changed this. Oops. That explains some of it. So, okay. Now it's making more sense. That's Control Shift. No, that's Control Shift. I think I need to go double check these. Sorry, give me a moment. So where it sucks, just to show it again, we are over here looking at the virtual key codes. I always want to say VK key codes. We're looking at virtual key codes. I'm going to replace the, I'm going to replace one of these. Okay, so what is A2? I got to put that in the calculator real quick. A2 is 162, so we're going to replace the other one with whatever J is. Or A. We're going to do S. 53. Click back over. Oh, we're good. Okay. Something happened on my phone there. I think that was my issue. I did the wrong thing here. I changed one thing when I expected to change another as well. And I forgot to do that. Actually, I said 162 is what we want. So there we go. So I think that's now going to be Control S, and then I think I want to change a lot of this back. So if the key is pressed or held, then we run the command, because I think that's more readable. Else we don't execute and we continue. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of the continue. We're gonna let the sleep happen so it doesn't bog down the thread. Okay, perfect. Now that I fixed that, if I press Control S, do we get it? So far, no. Alright, why are you trolling me? I swear I've done this before. Let's take a look one more time at, okay, so OX53. That should become, 83. Yep. And then the other one is 162. And what was that over here? A2 for left control. And that's 162, yeah. So left control and shift should be it. But I don't get what I want. Let's see. We're gonna bring this back. We're gonna test it out. Oh, oops, that's why. That's why. When I change that back, Yep. I was trying to execute the macro. We're not getting the output that I expect. And I might actually have an answer for that as well. Bear with me. I think it's literally because I'm still holding. Let's try something real quick. I think I know what's happening. And I think it's simpler than you would think. I haven't implemented wait yet. So we're gonna say wait time. Wait time millis. And in here we're gonna say, let's try to delete these. All right, we're gonna give it a duration from millis, and it's gonna be, we're gonna have to update that to a U64, it looks like. Where's it at? So wait is a U64. Oh, come on. You can, there's not a lot you can do to auto format that. Oh, it's because I made it mad. That's why. It's like, yeah, you could at least move that. There we go. Thanks, auto formatter. And we're gonna give it a wait command, which, what does it look like? Hmm, 2000. I've been running the code the whole time. All right, it's gonna wait for like 2 seconds, and it's working. Okay, yeah, so the whole time there was a problem that it was actually working, but my code was running too fast, and I was still holding control while it was executing. So that's a slight issue. That's a bug that we would want to work out. And I think so. It's funny too because what I actually had in place for the most part, I think was working. It's just that it was happening so fast. I was getting, again, I was still holding control on my end. So I need to, for now, just put a little sleep in here. It's not the best answer, but we're gonna put a sleep of like a second to give you time to like release the keys or something. Oh yeah, oops. See, now my macro is working, isn't it? Stop the program. Calm it down. It's too excited. It's like now I'm working. I'm gonna keep running. Okay, so if we're going to run a macro, we're gonna sleep for about a second first. That way I can release the keys before things start happening. So there we go. That's done. That was a bit of a stopgap, a little bit of a issue that wasn't as much of an issue as I thought. So basically, we check all the keys. As long as they are all held or pressed, we're good to go. Then let's execute the command. And we've seen it actually works. So if I do this again and I do, oops, why are you mad now? What did I miss up here? Oh, from what I saved earlier. Oops, I missed that. So now we will get right over here and I will say Control S, that's my hotkey. We should, there we are. We execute, perfect. Can't complain. That's what I expect. So then we do that. We kill the program. I use my hotkey to kill the program. So we're working. We're in good shape now. We're getting somewhere. That leaves a bunch of other commands that are not done. We have get mouse position, set, left click, middle click, right click, all that fun stuff. Fun fact, left click, middle click, and right click are all basically the same. And they're also all basically the same as pressing a key. So that's pretty easy to set up. There is the concept, just like with key up and key down, we could do left click up and left click down. And maybe you could have a macro that actually clicks, does a click down, and then like drags over somewhere and then releases. You could build a macro like that, but I don't currently have commands for like click down and click up. And I don't have commands for that level of fidelity on keys either, but you could do that. So it would actually probably be beneficial to build individual functions for click down and click up with that kind of feature in mind, if you were wanting to make it that robust. But I'm gonna skimp on that a little bit just for simplicity, because if you can build like any of these functions, you can just extrapolate and create more out of it. So it's not really a big deal. So we're gonna say left click, and I don't know what it returns, so we'll find out. Why are you gray? Code is inactive due to, oh, not Windows. It's like, why are you still gray? I gave you a function. Okay, so we have left click here, and once again, it's going to be unsafe. There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff here, but it's going to be very similar to the key. So I'm going to look for my left click function that I've done before, and I'm basically going to run down through that rather than going back and looking at the documentation stuff. I've been through the documentation already on the key stuff, so I'm not going to do that for every single function here. So we're going to do use Windows, Win32, UI, input, keyboard and mouse. See, there's no way I'm going to remember all that crap. And inside here we need send input. That should be familiar from the keyboard stuff. Input, that should be familiar from the keyboard stuff. So should input 0. Input mouse is different. Mouse event, F left down. Spoiler alert, there's a left up as well. Oh my god, I cannot type. So that's all we actually need. So let's go ahead and close that off. So that's all the stuff we're going to be using for left click. And it's going to be basically the same as we did for keyboard. We're just replacing keyboard with mouse stuff. So let's make a mutable input. And it's going to be input mouse instead of keyboard. And anonymous is still input 0 default. And now we're going to say, we're going to make a mutable mouse input. We're going to grab it just like we did from the anonymous before, where we get the keyboard, except instead of KI, we're going to get MI for mouse input. So there we have our mouse input, and all we have to do is add in the information of what it is we're actually going to do here. So we're going to say mouse input.dw flags equal mouse event left down. Now it's interesting because I can actually do this without doing the .0. Maybe I didn't have to do that earlier. It seemed like it was making me do that earlier. Maybe they've defined this different. I don't know. We'll double check that with the keyboard. Okay, so that's it. So then we're ready to send that off. So it's if unsafe, send input. Let's get an ampersand up here. Oops, where did I? Oh, there it is. Okay. So we'll do that. And then it's the same thing. STD mem size of. And we got to do the turbo fish here as I32. Not equal to 1. So this is the same thing as before, as I've said like 8 times, that we're sending one event, so we should expect to have a single, we should expect to get a 1 back because it tells us how many things were successful. So all we're going to do now is copy this because I'm not typing it again. Failed to send mouse left down. And we want to grab this return here. Why are you mad? Oh, the else. Oh no, no else. What am I missing? What I always hate is... Okay, no, now we're good. Yeah, it was the okay. I haven't got that far. That's the one thing I hate about Errorlins, is it gets so mad so quickly. And I was like, dude, we're fine. Why are you mad? So the only difference here is mouse input.dw flags equal mouse event left up. This is identical with the exception of left up. We could have bundled this into P inputs and checked against 2 instead of 1. I've done both. Both work. I kind of like explicitly sending them separately. It doesn't really matter though. So we can now left click. I mean, really, that's it. If I copy this, we can also right click. Let's take a look at it. See, once you get like some of this like rolling and working, it's super easy, super quick. I mean, this is basically what I would do on my own. I would just like copy this. Let's replace left with right, and that's about it. So right down, right up. And we can right click now. That was it. That's it for left and right click. Once you get one, you got the other. Guess what? Middle click is just as easy. Where's my command? It's up here. So we're gonna say Right click. Where did left click go? Right here. All right. Easiest way for me to test this right now is we're just going to put a right click after all the S's happen. Also, we can get rid of the weight now. I think that weight is no longer needed. We're going to put a right click in there, so we should see the S's happen, and then we'll get a right click context menu popping up. So let's see if that works. You do see those. Yeah, you see those. Cool. All right. What was it? Control S. There it is. A bunch of S's popped up. We got a right click context menu. Obviously the right click seems to be working. Theoretically, if you double click, you will highlight, like I'm double clicking now, it highlights all those S's. So theoretically, if I were to replace this with a left click, and then run it, I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to tell that it's actually doing what it's supposed to. Didn't get it in this case. Hang on. It might be clicking too fast, so let me try something. Oh, wait. I'm single clicking. That's why. Oops. It turns out if you want to double click, you have to actually click twice. I mean, don't ask how I figured that one out. It took a lot of reading of documentation. Still no. So that gives me an idea that it might still be the issue that I was saying, where it might be going a little bit too fast. Which is why you build weighting. You build weighting into your macros, because that's pretty standard that you want to wait some amount of time between commands. That's not unique to my code here. Almost any macro thing that you use will have the option to wait. There we go. We got it. It highlighted. I didn't do it. So that's cool. In fact, I'll click there, take my hands away, and we see it highlighted. It's doing things on its own. I don't really know how else to show the clicking yet, but once we put in some code to move the mouse around, then it'll be pretty easy. So that's going to be one of the next things we do. Control Shift F6, it cleared, killed my program right away. We're doing good. I like it. Now, this is still what I would call a naive implementation, because there's one issue, is that we're only running a single command, but we may end up in a case where we're running a lot of commands, and, well, we may end up in a case where we're running a long command. And if we're running a long command, what we're actually doing is we're passing off control of the program to this execute function. Rather, let me put it another way. The control of the program is really this for loop. And then if this for loop is like 100 commands long, or we ran a loop or something in there, then we're going to have an issue where we can't actually check this hotkey here to kill the program. So we're going to be stuck here. This command is stuck executing until it's done before we can ever exit the program. So when I described like way earlier that this was a naive implementation, this is what I was alluding to, because we're basically blocking the thread from being able to check if we should exit the program. And my solution for that's going to basically be, there's going to be a couple things, actually, a couple interesting things. But the first one is going to be, we're going to move this into a thread, because we don't want to block this. This is like the most important thing. Do we want to exit the program? Yes or no? That is more important than anything else, because if we want to exit, we should be able to exit while a command is running. So we're going to extract this into a thread in a little bit, but I'm going to keep plucking away at these last couple of things here that we need, because they're not actually that bad. For loop, iterations, and this one is going to be commands. So loop is going to be the most complex because we're going to say for... What if you want an infinite loop? I'm going to build... This is like custom built-in logic. Ooh, let me think. I'm trying to think of an elegant way to do this, but I can't. So let's forget about infinite loops. I was gonna say if you specified maybe 0 as your loop number, you would do like if iterations equals 0, then just loop, and then run all your commands. And that works, but it's not very elegant. We might come back to that later. But as long as we get the initial loop working, I'm happy. So let's see about doing that. It's just going to be for whatever in iterations. I don't care what the number is. Oh, whoops. Here we are. So for 0 or for whatever in 0 to iterations. So if we put 5 in, it'll do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll get 5 iterations out of it. And then every single time we do that, we want to run every command. So for command in commands dot iter execute. And that's all there is to a loop. Like, I mean, I just wrote the loop right there in the match statement. That should be all it is. So we have a new thing to test now. We have a bunch of these crappy press keys. We don't want to do that, right? We want to do something like this. Uncomment, y'all. I think that's the syntax. Oh, wait, no, the 17. Oh, yeah, I see how it is. Yeah. I see how it is. So it's going to be 6 iterations. We'll do 8. It's going to be 8 iterations, and it's going to do... What did I put in that loop? Let's confirm. I'm trying to make sure I understand the syntax. Left click, right click. That's all I put in the loop. Oh, I added that other one later. Okay, I see what it is then. So left click, right click. So we do need this double. See, this is where the YAML syntax is weird, and you would want to make sure that a user understands how it works. That should say we're going to press the key 8 times before we do any left clicking or any waiting or anything. But if I did the loop correctly, when I run this, we'll still get the same result as before, but I'm no longer manually pressing. We can see here it's a loop with 8 and press key 83. And then it's going to do a wait, and it's going to left click a couple times. So if we do this here, there we are. We got the exact same result, but we're looping it now, so we don't got to type it. We don't got to add that command 8 times. We could put anything else we want in the loop because it's just a command. We're just calling command.execute on it, same as anything else. So it's essentially like a recursive call here, but it very quick, very easy. It works. I like it. Makes me happy. Press key combo. Keys. This is the same logic as we're already using to check for a key combo. Or rather to, oh no, it's, my bad. No, it is the same logic as we're using to press a key, but we want to do them all in sequence. So there's probably a cleaner way to do this, but the quick thing that comes to my mind, the quick and dirty way to do this is going to be for key in keys.iter key down key, and it's probably going to complain because I need to dereference it. Okay, so we do a key down, and then we do a key up. Now, I'm explicitly doing all the keys down first, and then we lift the keys. The idea here is, what if you want to do Control S? You need to make sure they both go down before they are released. That's the idea. There's probably a cleaner, easier way to do this, and I can look at how I did this before. Press key combo. No, I actually did the same thing, and it worked when I tested it. So, yeah, can't complain about that. But the way I actually did it was with a function. So I could just slap that function in here real quick. It's literally what you just saw. In fact, I will just do it this way. We'll right click on it, we'll refactor, extract into function, and we'll say press key combo. And we'll give it the Windows config here. And now this is a little bit cleaner here. We don't want to put too much work in these match statements just for readability. So now we're left with two complex ones. Middle click, I don't even think it's worth doing. Just to demo, if we go over here and we type mouse event F middle down, oh my god, it's there. If you can do the left and the right down, you can also do the middle down. Like, it's not hard. So yeah, that's all there is to that. So get mouse position and set mouse position, those are going to be interesting, and I'm definitely going to want to reference what I have in from the past, because those are completely different. Those are completely different functions than we've been using so far, and they work quite a bit differently. So let me find my get cursor position function over here, and we're going to basically define one here. Yeah, we'll say get cursor position. I know it doesn't match up in exactly with the name, but it's okay. Get cursor position, and we'll do that. And is it smart enough to know that I'm returning it anyhow? No, it's not. Not this time. Config Windows, because you can't use Windows API on Linux. I mean, who knows what the way Windows subsystem for Linux is going, though. Okay, so we're actually... Ooh, I had it returning something else, so we'll do that instead. Yeah, I have it returning a point, which is here in this Windows Win32 Foundation. Why are you using in there? Let me go add it at the top here. Why are you mad? Oh, I know why. I know the reason that I decided to go this route, though, I do recall. And it's because getting the cursor position, I don't think it should be doing more than that. The point of getting the cursor position is to get the cursor position, not to print it and everything. So print line. Can I print point? I can. So we'll print point, and it should just get a couple things from it. We'll take a look at how it works. Go to point. Oh, it's messy. Yeah, it's just an X and Y. It's pretty straightforward. What'd you say, Taz? Dude, don't eat too much licorice. It can kill you. I'm actually not joking. Don't do it, Tusk. There was a thing a while back of someone who, I think they died, or they almost died. I think it was here in Texas. They would eat like a bunch of licorice every day with their lunch, and it causes a buildup of something. I don't remember what it is, but it's super bad. I think it's only black licorice though, so I might be wrong. Look into it. Anyway, so we need this point. It needs to be mutable because the function here is going to... This is Windows API. It's like old C code and stuff, right? So it's basically going to take in this point and modify it because that's how you know, that's how you would do things. So get cursor position. I guess I am, yeah, I guess I included that at the top. And mute point, we need a mutable reference to it. And then it gives us back, again, I'm not going to go over all the documentation here, but it gives us back a bool, but it's a Windows bool from the crate. So we could do as bool to turn it into a proper Rust bool. And then we just say OK point, because at that point, can't help but use the word, not even trying to, but at this point we know that it's actually valid, and it's been mutated because we're passing in a mutable reference. So we're good there. We can just return that. Otherwise, we want to return error anyhow, and then I'm going to feed in the get last Windows error. And that's that. We can get cursor position now. And I'm going to go ahead and just work on set cursor position. Result, probably nothing. And here at the end, I'm going to say okay, just so it stops complaining. Oh, good neck pop there. Incredible. I don't think I've seen those toes. Auto drop? I haven't seen that. Das Auto. Alrighty. So how do we set cursor position? There is a Windows API function called set cursor position, and it takes in an X and a Y value. So we're just going to call them X and Y, and we're going to pass those in as parameters. These are also I32s, so let's pass in what we actually need to use rather than casting them. And it's also the same as before, basically. Let me make sure. Yeah, there's a trick to this though, and it's goofy. Notice that I'm saying not here, and on get cursor position, I did not put a not. Unless I made a mistake, I have tested these and everything seemed to work. So it seems like they flip the logic a little bit here. Windows API, right? Fun times. Get last window error. Windows error. All right. It won't tell me what it returns though. Let's actually take a quick detour and find out. Get cursor position and set cursor position, because that's intriguing. All right. Set cursor position and get cursor position. It returns non-zero if successful. This one also returns non-zero if successful. I might have made a mistake, but I swear I've tested this. All right, so we're going to say they both return true if successful. So yeah, let me go adjust this accordingly. If okay, I'll try that. And we should be good to go. Let me make sure I'm calling all my functions. It's up at the top. Get cursor position, good. X and a Y. We're gonna have to dereference those. No semicolon. We're almost done. We almost got a working macro thing. I'm gonna do the thread extraction just to wrap up that thought. But yeah, I think we're good. So we're gonna try a couple goofy things here. We have a loop. I'm gonna loop it like 100 times, and I'm gonna say get mouse position. And let's get rid of the clicks. This config is getting gross. We're gonna test it out, okay? So there we are. Loop it 100 times, get mouse position, and nothing else. I'm just gonna put a wait, but that's not gonna hurt anything. Sweet. So cargo run. Unless it's mad. It's not mad. Watch the console. Alright, nope, something's mad. Failed to get cursor position 203. I don't believe that. That's the one I just flipped. There is some weirdness with the behavior of that. I'm gonna get rid of that knot and we're gonna try it again. I was like, I have tested these. Yeah. Now, okay, I've got a better idea. Let's add a wait into the loop. We'll wait 50 milliseconds. It ran so fast that we can't see the output changing. No? Something happened? Oh, I broke the, How did I break this? It's that. YAML's weird. Alright, you see my cursor's changing, right? The Y value, yeah, we're gonna do it again. Watch the, I'm gonna move it horizontally and the Y value is basically not gonna change. It's gonna be very similar. X value is changing a lot. If I do it again, I move mouse vertically, you see the Y value changes a lot more than the X value. We're getting the cursor position. We're good, right? Seems to be working. Now, we're gonna have a fun one here. I'm going to do set cursor position. And then it's going to be 400, 400. I think that's valid. No, it's not. We do it on another line. Right, this one's going to be annoying. But it'll be fun. Why are you mad? Oh, it's not cursor, it's mouse. There we are. So watch my mouse. I keep trying to move my mouse away and it just pulls it back to that spot because it is correctly setting the cursor position. So boom, that's working. We have defined everything but middle click, and I'm really too lazy to do middle click right now. So we have our working macro here. And that's cool. Makes me happy. I don't think we tested press key combo, however. I could test that, but I'm going to just kind of assume it's working for now. And we're going to go do the last major thing here. It's been a lot longer than I expected. Talking about it, running into a dumb error earlier. There were a couple problems there, but I think we're good now. So let's go ahead and extract this out into a thread. And there's going to be a couple of ways we can handle this. But the way I like to do it is I consider this loop here to be like my program loop or my game loop. It should run forever. This other stuff is in a worker thread that actually does the work. So let's copy that And this is all that main is going to be, essentially. So what I need to do over here is std thread dot, or not dot, but is it just thread new? No, not spawn. Yeah, std thread spawn, and we're going to say worker loop, and we need to pass in some stuff. So we're going to say right here, worker loop. We need to figure out what we need. It's going to be the macro config, but I don't think I need the config itself. I need the macros. So it's going to be, and let's see. What did I call the struct? Is it macro? You could do capital, but you can't do lowercase, right? Oh, I didn't do the return. Let's make it happy. Now, whether or not you want this function to return is another question. You probably want it to do some error handling in here. Mismatched. Yep. Okay, so right now, that's not actually what we want, because what it's going to do, it's going to run through all the macros one time and then stop. So we actually want a loop that runs it forever. And there's no way to break out, so that's an unreachable expression. So now we're happy. All right, so it's a loop that runs it forever. I'm going to put a thread sleep std thread. We're going to sleep it for like 50 milliseconds. Just cool off the CPU a little bit. We don't need to run it that hard. Okay, so basically, now we have a worker loop here. That's about all I need to do for the extraction. We feed in and macro config.macros. But we have a little bit of a weirdness going on here, so let's not do that. Also, yeah, we need to do the closure. Closure may outlive the current function. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. What I need to do is dot clone. We're going to clone that, and it expects a reference to a vector, but it found the vector itself because I did the clone. That's okay, though. Closure may outlive the current function, but it borrows that. And what did I do in the other program to make that happy? Let me double check. I don't feel like I had an issue there. I sent over the config. Oh, I see what I did. Yeah, I see why I didn't have an issue before. Let program hotkey equal macro config dot program hotkey dot clone, and we'll bop this. Closure may outlive. Shouldn't matter now. Did I do a move? Yeah, I did a move. Okay. I'll explain what I did here. Orange kicks ass. Orange kicks ass, Tusk. Okay. So what did I do here? Why did I do that? Basically, because the closure may outlive the current thread and it's freaking out, shouldn't be a problem, but we're gonna move the entire macro config into the worker loop. Actually, we're just going to move the macros. Can I just do that? Yeah, I can do that without a reference now because we're not doing anything else here. And in fact, I could probably... Can I make this happy? Oops. Yeah, I can do that because we're referencing separate parts of it, so we don't even need to do that clone anymore. Cool. Okay. All we actually care about in the worker loop is the macros themselves. So we've basically separated the program hotkey from the macros here, but we've kept the macro config living in the main thread here. I don't know, not too big of a deal. But yeah, basically we've moved that out. Now the worker loop here is doing exactly what we're doing in here. We just loop through, we check the macro. If the hotkeys are pressed, then we sleep for a little bit and then we run the command just to make sure we're not like still holding the button as the command starts. Now there may be a way to like force, like what if you sent like an input command to say press up on all of these keys or something. I don't know if that would work. So there may be something you can do about it that stops that from happening, or there may be other options that I'm not aware of. But basically, that's what the sleep is for. You hit it, you get your hands off the keys, and it starts working. That's the idea. So, there's still one more problem. And it relates to what I described earlier, because what I described earlier, and the reason I wanted to move this to a worker thread and keep it out of the main, I'm going to call that input listener. I kind of like that name more. But spawn a worker thread that acts as an input listener and executes the macros. Okay, cool. So the reason I did that was because it was going to be blocking the main thread. So in the loop here, we would be in the middle of a command. I looped something 6,000 times or whatever's happening, and oh, we have to wait for that to finish before we ever get back to the top of the loop and check the macro config hotkey to actually quit the program. We don't want to do that. We want to be able to quit the program at any time. So that's why we took this and threw it off into its own loop to get it away from this, to get it away from the hotkey to quit the program. And we want that in the main thread because that's really what we're doing. We're trying to kill the entire main thread. So cool, right? We have that exact same problem in here now, don't we? Because what we're actually doing is we check the hotkeys for a macro, and then we start running the macro. But what if this macro does like 6,000 iterations of a loop? What if it's an infinite loop or something, and we actually want to run a second macro for some reason? Why? I don't know. Like, why would you run 2 at the same time? Why would you run 8 at the same time? I don't know. But we have the same problem here. So my solution to this is to actually delegate the execution of the commands to another thread yet again. There is one caveat to this, and the caveat is that if you do that, you could then run the same command multiple times simultaneously. That could be a concern. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if you run it and then you run it again and again and again, like you could be doing that over and over and over again. Could be bad, especially you could have like some weird interactions between the same macro running over and over. So I'd say be careful with that. But that is the idea here, is that we don't want to be held up and prevented from running the macro. We don't want to be prevented from running it, from running a different macro while we're running another one, right? It's confusing, but that's the idea. Now, we may be able to build some kind of map or something to map. That could actually be really interesting now that I think about it. We could build something like a hash map. Oh, the only question I have is, what would the index of the map be? You could just make it the, you could do an iter.enumerate on the, you could do iter.enumerate. And instead of that, you would say index and macro. And you could do std collections. No, we're gonna import it. I don't want to type that every time. So we're gonna say hash map. What do we want to call this? Macro threads. This is an idea. I've not tried this yet. So I'm literally just like doing this right now. So what you would do here, I haven't even fully explained what I was thinking about, but basically what you would do with this is if you start up a thread for a command, you could check if there's already an existing thread. And if not, you then spin up a new thread. So you stop the command from executing twice. Or you could do something like that as a way to cancel, to kill a command. Although I don't know, I'm assuming you can kill a thread as it's running. It's honestly something I've never tried before. So this would be the idea. What we would do down here is we would say macro threads dot insert, and your key would be index, and then your value would be actually, you would spawn a thread, because that actually returns a thread handle. So I don't see any reason. I mean, I guess it might not implement hash though, so there may be a problem there. We'll just have it do that and see if it gets mad. It might not oh, we could totally hash a thread handle. I mean, that may be how, like, partially how thread pulls are implemented. I don't know. Never tried it. So that's an idea that might be worth trying. And then rather than saying macro threads.insert, we would actually do a check to say macro threads.get. And that gives us an option. So we do like a match on it. No, actually we would do, how do I want to do this? So macro threads.get index and expected a reference found a usize. So we could get that, that gets us an option. So then we could do something like okay or else maybe. This is where I had to think about it a little bit. Basically what we want to do is we want to, if that index isn't there, we want to add a thread, and we want to somehow remove the index once the command is done running. So there's some weirdness there. You know, that's actually an idea. You could check if there is a thread in there. You could maybe check the status on it. There's some weirdness. I want to try something and say .get index.unwrap. Oh, hang on, let's do this. I'm gonna retreat from this for the moment because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much more, but I want to take a look at some of the things you could do on the join handle. Serialize. What are we serializing? Where's join? Is it not getting me the join handle? Oh. Maybe I'll put it down here. There we go. That's better. Extracts a handle the underlying thread. Yeah, you could check if it's finished. Is finished supports implementing a non-blocking join operation by checking is finished and calling join if it returns true. So there's some options here that you could do to basically map the threads to your macros. Honestly, like, I partially just want to keep going down this rabbit hole. Like, I mean, we're already here. I've already done a bulk of the work, honestly. So It is, see, I don't know what the type is for that. Oh, it just has a, okay. Why are you mad now? Because of that? I do. Oh, I'm missing that. I was like, why is it so mad at me? Cool. Okay. I've never tried this. This is basically like a thread pull almost, but we're mapping it to explicit indices. Ah, this seems fun to me. Something I haven't tried before. So then what we want to do is we want to check if macro threads dot get index dot is none, then we just spawn it up. Like, we're good to go. We could spawn this bad boy up. We're not going to print. We're going to say... Now, we're going to have to clone the commands or something, so bear with me on that as well. But basically, inside the thread, we're going to say... What am I going to do? Also, that semicolon's on the spawn. That's not where I want it. Or actually, I need another... Yeah, there we go. Okay. It's this. For command in macro commands. And we can't do this because we're coming out of a thread, right? I can't. You can't even put return types on closures like this. So even if I want to do that, I can't get away from it. Oh no, I can. Expected result. Hang on. Work from this. I don't know. It's not very happy. Yeah, I'm gonna say. Let's replace that. Let's just do that. I know unwrap is bad. Bear with me. We're trying to get a proof of concept working here. Okay, so macros is borrowed, and we don't want to deal with that. So what we're actually going to say is right here, we're going to say let commands equal macro.commands.clone. I know it's a little expensive. I don't think it's that big of a deal in a program like this. There we have it. We made it happy. So in the case that there is no thread already there, we're going to do is none. Or we're going to do all that. I was reading is none. Yeah, in the case that there is nothing there, do is none. Else... Now this is where it's going to get a little weird. In fact, I don't like this anymore. Let me change this to a match. Because I do, like, I don't like... I'm going to have to do another get. No, let's just get it the first time. Although I do see a potential problem coming up. All right, well, we got the none case. The none case is all of this. So the sum case, we have to check the thread. We'll call it handle. And we will say if handle.is finished, we basically do this thing again. It's gonna let me get away with that? I don't believe that. I have a hard time believing that. Else... Oh, that... No, that's it. We do nothing. We don't want to run it a second time. So we just do nothing, right? Why do I feel like it's going to complain when I... What? We're doing a match on macro threads. I guess once the get is over, we're not borrowing anything from here. We do have the join handle, though. I'm going to trust it. Let's make a long-running loop. I mean, that's a pretty good one. But I don't have any way to know that it's doing what I want it to. I'm trying to think of a good way to make it obvious. So the other option is I could actually implement some logic to... How would I say it? I could implement some logic to kill the thread somehow. Else... Now, how would I do that? Because you can't... Extracts a handle to the underlying thread. Unparked, does that kill it? Atomically makes the handles token available if it's not already. No. Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to kill it. That's something I'd have to look into. One of the only ways I know to reliably kill a thread is to, at least in Rust, it probably doesn't work in like C or something. But in Rust, when I quit the entire program, these threads should be killed. I've done it many times and it's always worked. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. This is goofy. Kill thread? Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. Let's try running this. Okay, we're not getting what I want. Okay, there's clearly a problem. Oh wait, it quit. Oh, I'm building. I'm stupid. I did that earlier. Okay, we're obviously getting that. And it stopped running pretty quickly there. I think I pressed it a second time. Let's add a little bit of logging here. If it's none, if it's some, command already executing. We're gonna make that a warning. I think I just came up with a better option on the fly here. That's pretty cool. I like it. I'm probably gonna like move this over to my other one. It's actually in a repository on my GitHub. I think I'm gonna move this logic over there and probably clean it up a little bit. I don't like the unwrap. We'll do a match on that. I mean, this is me cleaning it up. Do a match on that and just say, we'll just log that there was an error. Okay, not print line though. How's that? Now something fails, it's not going to completely kill this thread, but we are going to get a like a log for it. It's going to complain, so it's better than nothing. And we can say command already executing. That's good. Cargo run. Control S. All right, let's try to run it again. I'm not getting the warning log. Why? I didn't get anything. Let's see. You know, poke around a little bit. Ah, wait. So we do throw this off into a thread. Did I miss something? We're spawning it. Oh, oops. I think I was double executing, which is something I was trying to avoid. So I was blocking the thread. Command already executing. Yeah. Good. I like it. Let's try another thing. Executing, I can't move my mouse. Kill the program, I can move my mouse. Awesome. So yeah, killing the main thread does kill this worker thread, this input listener. Oops, no search. I want to format. All right, well, I think that puts me in a pretty good state. I built what I wanted to build today. Almost. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I can't wait any longer. We're gonna do two more things actually. So mouse middle down and mouse middle up. Also, I never responded to that, Tusk, but you deal with mosquitoes a lot over there. Like, I mean, people complain about them here a lot, but they never really bother me. I never really had a problem with them here in Texas. Seems like you deal with them all the time over there. All right. And this is middle click. That's how lazy I was. I didn't want to do that. All right, we got loops, we got clicks, we got setting, getting cursor positions, all kinds of fun stuff. Can't complain about that. What I'm gonna do is add in a second. I'm gonna add in a second command here, but I'm gonna move this over by about like another 400. I'm gonna see where that puts my mouse. Good, that puts it in the document. That's what I wanted. So we have one command that sets my mouse, and as goofy as this is, I'm gonna make another command that does Control A. So this command is going to repeatedly set my mouse, and I'm going to have another command do Control A to select the whole document, because why not? Could be fun. I got a better idea even. What's the first command? Yeah, we press E combo. For this though, I'm going to do Control F6, so I think Press key combo. That's the wrong one. Hold on. Macro hotkey. And we need both of these. Commonality there is 162, so that's control. And I don't know what F6 is. I think it's 160. It might be 117. Time to check the browser. Let's see, virtual codes, F6. OX75, I think that's the 117. I'll pull up my calculator, go into programmer, go into hex. 75, yeah, 117. Okay. I know you didn't see that, but that's fine. Leave some comments there, that'll help. All right, so we got our, oops, I'm still running it. I accidentally executed my set the mouse position macro. Okay, so we got another macro started up here, commands. Why did I put so many O's? Commands. And this one is going to be press key combo. And it's going to be 162 left control. And it's going to be whatever A is. I think it's like, it's not 45, is it? No, it's OX41. We're gonna put A, and that's really it, right? So this is kind of a goofy way to test it, but I want to test that I can even run two macros at the same time. And also it'll test both. It'll test that they run simultaneously. It'll also test that I can just run more than one macro. So both of those are good. Set mouse position is not all I want to do though. Set mouse position, this is part of the loop. I also want to do wait, and then no, we'll click immediately. Left click. I hope that was it. Damn it. Saved. Screw with me. Okay. Kill the program. It's still running. It's hurting me. Okay. I think we're good. I'm going to annotate a couple of these. This is S. And I think that does it. So, got a couple odd things to remember here. We're going to set the mouse. It's going to click. Then it's going to wait. It's going to set the mouse. It's going to click. It's going to wait. Probably wait even longer. We'll wait 1,000, and I'll loop this like 40 times instead. That's going to take 40 seconds to run, but yeah, that's fine. The clicks will be slow enough too, so there's some benefits to that. So anyway, let's run this and see what happens. So Control S is going to set my mouse, and then Control F6 is going to do Control A, and it's going to try to highlight the whole document. So I have two different macros. We're going to try and run them at the same time. Control S. Yep. It keeps moving my mouse and clicking. And then Control F6. It pressed A. Okay. That's still running. It pressed A. So I didn't test something that I wanted, or I just kind of ran with it and was hoping it would be fine, but I didn't test it. It's key combo. We press all the keys And we release all the keys, right? So apparently I might have a bug here. Well, let's run it without the other thing. Oh, it worked. Control S. Oh, it worked. Where was I getting the A from earlier? I don't know. We're running two commands at the same time. The mouse one is still working. That's working. Yeah, it's highlighting. And the reason it unhighlights is because the clicking is removing the highlighting. So I was running two macros at the same time there. We could add any other commands that we want, feasibly. I could add a command to play a sound. I could add a command to open your web browser. You know, you load up your porn websites or whatever you want to do. That's it. I mean, you could kind of build whatever you want with this. This is a basic idea, but it's super powerful. Right now, I could make a macro. Like if I have a game with a very repetitive thing that I don't want to do, I could make a macro that works for that. There is an issue though that I would like to deal with. Let me try something. Let range equal 0 dot dot. And that's like an infinite range. I think that does a for loop. Well, I think what I would want to do here is say if iterations equals 0, loop, and we just run this command forever. We run all the commands forever. Why is it mad? Oh, whoops, I dereferenced the wrong side. So if iterations are 0, what this is I have now created my own little logic here to say if you tell it a loop with 0 iterations, that doesn't really make sense, but that's my magic way of saying infinite loop. Else, we do a normal loop for the range. But I wonder, what does a loop look like? What does an infinite range look like? Because it's going to overflow, right? Let's see. Let's go back to the browser and let's search real quick. Rust range with no end. Start to end. You could do it without an end. Dude, I just did it. It was happy. Half open. No, that's not what I care about. How do I include the end value? That's not what I want. Infinite range. Basic iterator usage. I want to know how this works. Range can return an infinite iterator. This might be, we're on floating point stuff, but this might be what I need. No, that's floating point range stuff. I made a weird macro one time in Rust that actually generates... Oh, falling stairs, you scared me. Thank you for that, I appreciate it. I made a macro one time in Rust that actually does proper ranges of floating points. It has almost the exact same syntax as a regular range, but it makes discrete steps between the start and the end. So they're really it's looping over like fixed values rather than the odd behavior of actually trying to do a range on floating points, because you'll have a bad time if you try to do that. Always prefer loop, yeah. I don't. So the problem, I'll show you why I was. Oh God, that's blinding. I can feel my cornea melting. Help me, save me. Okay, yeah, I'll go back over here. Save my eyes. Jeez. Okay. So, where was I at? Yeah, what I was hoping to do is something like this. I don't know the behavior, so I mean, I guess I could try it and just see what happens. But what I wanted to do is something like match iterations, and then say 0. Actually, I'm gonna put a let range equal that, and if it's 0, then we'll return 0 dot dot. Otherwise, oops. Otherwise, return return that. Oops, what am I doing? Sorry, I'm tired. Match arms have incompatible. Oh, okay, yeah, we run into a problem here, don't we? Expected range from, but it found range. So there's a difference between the two types. So I'm not sure if there's a better way to do this besides the if else. I mean, I could do a match. I could do exactly this, but just run different code. I think that is cleaner than an if else. I like, man, match statements are fun. Always do match statements. I don't know why I didn't do that at first. Let's get rid of the range there. I like that more than the if else. So we build an infinite loop construct here, and here we build we just do a normal loop based on the range. Yeah, that works. So everything should still be fine. Let's run. Yep, it's setting my mouse, it's clicking. That's good. All right, what about the other one? Was it Control F6? Highlight the document. I think something's happened where it's clicking at a weird time and I'm getting that A. I don't know what that's about. Because I saw it work, and it sometimes gives me that weird issue. If we rerun it, let's click in the document here, and Control F6. Yeah, we highlight the document because it's pressing Control A. That's what I have that hotkey scripted to do. So why is it that when I start this other macro that moves my mouse and clicks, and then I press that, we highlight the document? I don't know where the A is coming from. There's some weirdness going on there. I don't know what that is. That'd be something to look into. But, okay. I did a little bit more than I planned on doing. I did a lot more than I planned on doing. I like this. I don't know how other people feel about it. Maybe it's terrible. Maybe there's a good crate for this. Again, I feel like it's a bit like a thread pool, but I had fun building it myself. This whole concept here of a hash map of threads to join handles. Oh, actually, I'm stupid. Earlier I said I needed it. All right, I'm gonna correct myself. You don't need to have hashing on the handle, because we're not hashing that. We're hashing the usize. It was just such a weird concept to put a join handle in there for some reason that it threw me off. But yeah, the idea of each macro should only be running should only be executing once at a time. We don't want to execute the same macro more than once at a time. So the idea of keeping track of the macros that are running, and depending on that is what determines whether or not we spawn up a thread or not. So that was I like that. It's a different approach than I've done before, but it seemed to do the trick, and it just worked. Like I didn't have to debug it or anything, so that felt nice. I'm happy about that. Was there anything else I added that was new? I feel like there was something else I did that was kind of new that I didn't do last time I wrote a program like this. We'll just leave all that in there. One more thing. What does this do? Nothing? Control D does like a search or something. I was thinking, I'm gonna add another macro. I'm gonna make Control D, delete the document, and save it. I mean, I could, right? I could make something that actually does Control A and then hits delete and then does Control S. Now I have to be careful with that Control S one because I have another macro map to Control S right now. Don't make your macros that simple. That's not good. So yeah, this is actually in a lot of ways a little better than the last time I did this because I'm doing better logging. I was a little bit more thorough on some things, but yeah, can't really complain. Happy with where this turned out. This went a little bit longer than expected, as it probably always does. But I mean, it's one thing when you're doing this by yourself and you're like just focused in. It's another thing when you're reading chat sometimes. You know, we had Saint Nicholas Stew and Tusk. Tusk hadn't said anything for a bit, but we have people talking and stuff. You know, so you're trying to follow a chat. You're trying to explain what you're doing. And it's a little bit different, so it takes a little bit longer. But there we are. We got a bunch of functions. We got a bunch of commands. Again, we can get the mouse position. We can set it. We can left, middle, right click. We could press a key. We could press a key combo. We could wait. We could run loops, whether infinite or, you know, for a finite set of iterations. And we got a config file that defines all that. And now I guess I can get rid of the file stuff because we're not actually using it anymore, so I guess I will delete this. And boom, there we are. A few hundred lines, almost 400, but I mean, there's a lot of formatting here, a lot of empty space, so yeah, it works for me. Cool. And there's our config. Got a couple macros defined. The one thing I would really want to do to clean it up is map, and it's honestly not that hard to do. Map these values to actual strings. So instead of having the user input 160, they would put in left shift. Looking up VK codes kind of sucks. I hate it. I wouldn't want a user to have to look those up either. I mean, I guess I could provide them, but it sucks like going back and forth. Like, what key is, I don't know what key that is. Like, it's gross. So instead of doing that, building out an enum with a mapping between strings and ints would be good, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. You could maybe even, no, I tried to do this before. You can't do an impl on a. I tried to take the virtual key from the Windows crate and do an impl serialize on that. I think I tried to derive. You might be able to impl. But I think I tried to derive serialize, and it was not happy because you can't derive that on something from another crate, if I can talk. So I ran into some issues there. So it might be a situation of like defining my own enum, but it's not really that difficult. So it might be something I do later. But yeah, that's about it. We made a little macro program. We could define commands, define macros. They run at the same time. We can't run it more than one. We can't run an individual macro more than once at a time. I'm happy. Hold on. Sorry, I was fighting that. I couldn't get through. Terrible sneezing. I was like, it's gonna happen. I can't fight it. Um, so where was I at? Yeah, they if we kill the program, like it's not blocked by the execution of other macros, and similarly, macros don't block each other from running. I guess I already kind of covered that. So that's about it. We good? That's gonna be it for this coding stream. Thank you anyone who tuned in. You're lurking, chatting, whatever floats your boat. I appreciate it. If you like this, if you want to see more of this, I do this every Monday, Wednesday. Go ahead and drop a follow. I also put all these up on YouTube, so you can drop a follow on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube and you want to head over here on Twitch, you can do that. I always put the link in the description. Also, if you're doing the YouTube thing, go ahead and like, subscribe, notification bell, all that fun stuff. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Give me advice. If there's like, hey, you could have done this thing better, like tell me what's up. That's how you learn. That's how you get better. So give me ideas on how to get better. I've been working on an alarm thingy, as I affectionately call it, and I'm working on getting some UI stuff kind of prototyped and set up on the side before I go back to it, because it's a little bit too much of a learning process for me to want to do on stream. It's just like, I don't know how this thing works. I got to dig into the docs, and like, I mean, I spent an hour or two messing with it, and I just finally kind of got some basic buttons and stuff like almost working and like doing things. I'm looking at the Dioxis crate, and it's a combination of not knowing the crate as well as it uses like HTML and stuff, and I'm not really great with HTML, so it's a combo of like, I mean, I don't know how to use the buttons and stuff right in general with HTML without looking at documentation. I'm not a UI person, right? So I don't know. I'm not a front end person, rather. So is already like HTML. I always got to look at documentation for that. And then just on top of that, it's a crate I've never used, and I got to learn like their API and how they work. So I was kind of fumbling around, having a good time. I was originally planning on using Slint, and I may go back to doing that because I know I can make it work a little bit better. But Dioxis seems great. Like I think it's there. I just got to figure it out. I got to get over that like initial hump. So we'll see what happens. So Wednesday is supposed to be coding stream. It's supposed to be, if I can get enough done before then, cool. But I really only have tonight and tomorrow night to mess with it. So we may have to just pick up another random little project and then get back to the alarm next week, maybe. All right, enough of me rambling, though. Again, thank you everyone who watch and do all the fun stuff on YouTube. Hit me if you follow us here on Twitch. Thank you again. Is it Falling? Yeah, not Failing. Falling Stairs. Thank you again for that follow. I appreciate it. Hope you tune in for more. And until next time, have a good day, have a good night, whatever it is, wherever you're at. Take it easy.
Long, long.